All right, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Thursday. November 28th, 2024 is the date, 11:22 a.m. California time here. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there, for those that celebrate it. A little bit of earthquake activity happening out here in Oklahoma City, it looks like, just outside the Oklahoma City area around Edmond. 2.6 coming into the region here within the last hour. Let's focus a little bit more on this earthquake here. I know this region has seen quite a bit of home development here recently. A lot of stuff, building up around the bigger cities. That makes sense, right? Population increases. This earthquake occurring out in a residential neighborhood. It hasn't always been a residential neighborhood. In fact, there's quite a few oil fields out here around the Oklahoma City area that have been covered up, redevelop, homes on top of it. And we still see earthquake activity happening below the surface there. It's happened quite a bit there across the area of Edmond, Oklahoma. And this earthquake, no exception. They'll continue to see earthquake activity out there across the land because the damage is done, right? Everywhere there's pumping operations, fracking operations, oil withdrawal, there's earthquakes in the future. For these folks. So that will continue. Oil fields there in the past, home development all over the place there on top of it. Just the latest earthquake out there around the oil fields. Quite a bit of oil field earthquakes out here in Texas as well. Also, if you look on the map, a couple more earthquakes out here around the new Madrid seismic zone. Some 2s and 1s out there. A couple earthquakes there in Arkansas, one in Mississippi. One over in Virginia from yesterday. This is a yesterday earthquake. But let's focus in on the new Madrid seismic zone here. Got a couple 2s and 1s stirring up here from just about after midnight until about 3 o'clock in the morning. Now this area of the earthquake activity, well, it sits right there in the center of the new Madrid seismic zone. This is a region that had a series of large earthquakes there back in the early 1800s, well before, the populated area started to come into play here. Now we got, a lot of population out here around Memphis area, Jonesboro. This whole area sits within the new Madrid seismic zone. And it's not only the center portion there of the new Madrid seismic zone that you have to worry about. These big earthquakes, upper 7s, can be felt way far away. We're talking about hundreds of miles away. We can even see damage outside of that zone. So a big earthquake today on the populated regions here would be quite devastating. I want to show you guys real quick the historical data out here. Here's Memphis, by the way, right? Look at this, 6.1 back in 1811. I believe this was in the mix of the sequence of large events there. This is not even the largest event. Some more of the larger events took place up here across the area where we had 7.5, 6.3, a couple more 7s up north, 7.0, all roughly around the 1811, end of 1811, 1812 time period. And this is the old rift zone, a failed rift zone, so to speak, right in the this area of the country. But occasionally we'll still see quite a bit of earthquake activity out here in this failed rift zone. Now certain strike slip zones out here accumulate a little bit of strain. I was looking at the slip rate here, and I found the slip rate around the new Madrid seismic zone in some of the blind thrust areas to calculate a slip rate of looks like 1.8 to 2.0 mm per year. Now, if you guys aren't good with numbers there, that's actually quite low in terms of enough strain and stress to be built up to produce an earthquake. And that's if they go by the this type of fault boundary. For the San Andreas Fault, that's 20 to 35 mm per year, which is much higher. So we're always seeing a lot of earthquake activity on the San Andreas Fault. But noticeably, we've been seeing a lot of activity there on the new Madrid seismic zone. So, what's going on here? Are we maybe getting closer to seeing a bigger quake out here? We're looking at over 200 years now of potential larger scale activity playing out here. 1811, 1812, yeah, that's over 200 years ago. Here we are, 2024, almost 2025. Living in the future times here, folks. So, I pulled up the 3.0 magnitude level since the records have been kept here from the USGS. So it is common to see some threes out here. That's not, and some twos and some smaller quakes. That's not abnormal. But let's take a look here when the last measurable decent sized earthquake, even a 4-pointer, it looks like back in 2021, they happen on occasion out here across the area. That was actually outside of the new Madrid seismic zone. Bunch of threes. There's some more threes. Threes. We have to go back to, let's see here. We got to go back a little ways. Got some fours back in 2005. It seems like the sequence of events out here come in terms of elevated uptick occur roughly around the same time of each other. There's 3 4-pointers within a few months of each other. So it looks as though, and that's what played out there with the larger quakes as well. It looks as though elevated seismic activity at the new Madrid seismic zone occurs on a like a time frame, so to speak, within months of each other, followed up by quietness. I'm trying to find a little bit larger one. 4.5 back in 1991. Had a couple other earthquakes there as well. 4.8, 1990. Now we're going to get back to the bigger ones here. There's a 4.6, 1976, 4.7, 1963. That's in the Missouri area. Hold on a second here. What's going on with... Did we freeze? There we go. That's up here. A couple fours. Here's some larger fours back in 1930 or so. Looks like there was quite a bit there occurring all at once. Bunch of fours back in early 1900s. 5.8. This happened back in 1895 on Halloween. And that earthquake, I don't know what's going on with this map here, but it's acting a little fishy. That's a little bit further up north. 5.0. 1878, a little bit closer to the Memphis area. I think the last measurable earthquake there, it's Arkansas. There's 6.3 back in 1843. That was some years after the 1811, 1812 earthquakes. Let's see what this little earthquake is down here. That was a 3.8, 1889. Even though a lot of time has passed since then. 6.1 directly underneath the Memphis area back in 1811. But that was a series of large events that affected the entire area out here, from down south here to the southern end all the way up to the northern end of the new Madrid seismic zone. Seems like when it goes in all areas. But I know we had somewhat of a larger felt event out here around Memphis back in... There's 1938, 1878. There's a 5.0. It was 1865 here when that earthquake struck. 4.7 around the Memphis area. I think that was the last decent felt earthquake out there. 1865. This little 3.8 happened some years later. So, basically that large 6-pointer struck before the incorporation there of Memphis, incorporated status there, which happened back in 1826. So obviously there was some people around here, some settlements and whatnot, but nothing like what we have today. And a 6-pointer directly underneath this area. Yeah, that'd be a 6.1 would be quite devastating. And that's just, one potential down there. There's other numerous larger cities out here across the region as well where these big earthquakes struck. I don't want newest. I want the largest here. Something's going on with this map. I don't think it's me. It might just be the USGS side of things here today. Are we still live? Yes, we are. I'm going to refresh this map here and see if I can get it to function. Might just be the USGS here. Okay, because there is the larger earthquakes. Now, there's a little bit of speculation on maybe that some of these quakes could have been larger than the 7.5. They're talking about maybe around the low 8. But what the USGS states here is that they were in the mid 7s. But anyway, something like that, mid 7 out there today. Oh, yeah, we'd be feeling it. A lot of damage out across the area for sure. So look at that, 1811, 1812. You know, there was at least 6 large earthquakes out there, including 2 in the 7.5 range. So it looks like when this thing goes, it just goes. But we do have periodic moderate quakes in between the big events as well. You know, 5.8, 1895, 1878, 5-pointer. And if you think about it, you know, looks like in our newer era here, in our time period, 1920s, there's seen some 4-pointers. So 1990, 4.8, that's northern Missouri. It looks like, yeah, see, to me, it looks like a lot of time has gone since we've seen any measurable size earthquakes out here. 4.5 back in 1991, but these are little quakes. So it's a good possibility here. We could be looking at maybe something larger happening in the area with over 200 years of time that has passed since the large earthquake struck out here in the New Madrid seismic zone. There's today's 3 point, or that was a week or so ago, 3.2 out there in the New Madrid seismic zone. So this year we've had, what do we got? We got 1, 2, 3 earthquakes here above 3-pointer. Looks like last year had about 3 of them as well. 2022, couple back in 2022. Almost seems like there's at least 3 earthquakes or so measurable above 3.0 every year. There's 4 back in 2019. You know, so I look at this, and what that tells me here is that the structure out here, what creates these earthquakes, whether it's directly related to the failed rift or maybe something else underneath this area, is still very much there and alive in terms of producing another large series of events out here. I'm sure we could go back historically and document even larger quakes, or maybe similar large quakes prior to the 1811, 1812 series of quakes there. So in the 30 days alone here, we've got within the New Madrid seismic zone, and it's definitely within that area, the center portion of it, got about 29 earthquakes here. And of course, the largest is going to be that 3.7. Almost looks like we had 2 3-pointers this month, so it looks like things are increasing. I'm going to go back here. The last, we can just change this. We'll go back to last year. Hope everyone's enjoying their Thanksgiving, by the way. I want to pull up 1.0 and above, and I want to see what we have in the last year of activity, because it looks like things are starting to increase. And remember what I said, when things start to increase, then they just start to go out here. It seems to be a common pattern, so to speak. I guess that should cover it right about there. So 1.0 and above for the New Madrid seismic zone shows 311 earthquakes so far within this past year, including, well, there was 1 3-pointer there from last year back in December. So far this year we've got 1, 2, 3 above the 3.0 magnitude level. Quite a few 2s in there, right? There's always going to be some more 2s, and then of course 1s are going to be more than the 2s. That's just the way the average sequence of events go there with earthquake activity. and I'm sure there's a lot more underneath the 1.0 magnitude as well. So that's a lot of earthquake activity happening, and it's well defined here, in terms of where that fault system is, or that failed rift boundary. In fact, that it extends a little bit further out here than just the center portion of it. So, whether we're going to see a big one here soon or not, it's always a good idea to be prepared out there, right? It seems like things are starting to be more on the noticeable side of uptick in earthquake activity out here across this area of the country. New Madrid seismic zone. We got movement down in Mississippi. Some activity there in New Jersey earlier this year. So watch that. It could happen any time. It's just a lot of time has passed. You really think about it, folks. Here we are living in the future, almost 2025. Large earthquakes are part of our history. It's been well documented, but we get so complacent building up our skyscrapers, going to work, making that money, and we forget about our geological history, what can happen here. And we are, there's big ones in the forecast out here in the future. The question is when it's going to happen. You got to watch these trends here. If there's elevated trends of elevated larger magnitudes here, that could be leading up to something bigger. It seems as though we see a larger mass of earthquakes following the large, or prior to the large events out here. So keep an eye on the New Madrid seismic zone. It has been quite active. Today, a couple more earthquakes there, 4 of them to be exact, just after midnight. All right, let's check out California, see what's going on out here on this Thanksgiving. Quite active out here across the West Coast as well. Got about 90 earthquakes here in the last 24 hours of all magnitudes. The 2.5 map and above, well, that, somewhat fairly active. There's a 3-pointer there in Mina, Nevada from yesterday. Aside from that, most of these from today. I had an earthquake just north of me here outside of Red Bluff, California. 3.4 at just about 3 o'clock this morning here. 2.8 up in the Tahoe area. And then the latest one at 2.7 here across this area of the Bishop region. There's quite a few unnamed volcanic faults down here. This is somewhat in the area where we were watching that earthquake swarm here in the Mammoth Lakes region. But I don't think this is volcanic activity. This is more so stress related, and it shows here on the map. All this area is seeing a little bit of uptick here in earthquake activity. So not volcanic activity. We're not seeing any rising or inflation going on here around the Mammoth Mountain volcano or Long Valley supervolcano. In fact, this is pretty steady or downslope, meaning deflation. They have had a lot of snow up here recently, so I don't know if the snow is contributing to some of the, I don't know, to some of the strain here, but I don't think it'd be this type of magnitude, 2s and some 3s. I don't think the snow would do that. So I think it's more or less strain-related stress out here on the North American plate, and we're seeing it right across California, inland as well. It's right now 2.7 here in the last hour. 1.8 prior to that a couple hours ago. Further down south across Southern California, Ridgecrest area somewhat active. This is the area that's seen that 7.1 back on July 5th. Prior to that, there was a 6.9 or 6.7 on July 4th. Hence the holiday, right? Big earthquakes around holidays. That's why it's kind of scary today. It's Thanksgiving, right? And earthquakes in the past have been known to happen on events that have significant importance like Easter earthquake activity down south. I remember that quite a few years back here on the Imperial Fault. There's a number of them. We'll have to cover that on a different video, but just a little eerie because numbers have importance out there in terms of large events. Let's look at the rest of Southern California here. A couple more earthquakes. Let me see. This is from yesterday on the Puente Hills thrust fault here. They've seen a number of earthquakes here recently. A little bit there from yesterday. And a couple months back, we had a mid 4-pointer out here that stirred up a little swarm of activity and made some national news here because the Puente Hills thrust fault runs directly underneath Los Angeles and is capable of producing a 7.5. That directly underneath Los Angeles is more dangerous and more damaging to those folks there than, say, an 8.1 with a larger magnitude at a distance here on the San Andreas Fault. So that's shown some activity again in the last couple days. The San Andreas Fault for now remains quiet, but 300 and something years of built-up strain have accumulated on this segment of the San Andreas Fault. Not only that, but up here, we're well overdue. Across this area of the San Andreas Fault, the Parkfield segment, it's, so much time has passed. That's why I'm saying, just like the new Madrid seismic zone, just like any other area that hasn't seen a large earthquake in the past couple hundred years, it's coming. We've been living in some quiet times out here, but I don't think that's going to be for much longer. So for now, beautiful day out there in Southern California. Hopefully it stays that way. There's that 3.4 outside of Red Bluff here. There's a little fracture zone here called the Battle Creek Fault. Did this earthquake just pop up? 1046. I don't know. Maybe it did. I don't remember seeing that there just a minute ago. If it did, it's almost an hour old. But just making it there on the map right now, little small 1.5, 6 miles deep. Red Bluff earthquake here, roughly about 13 miles deep here underneath this region. We have had a little bit of earthquake activity out here in the Blanco fracture zone in the last week. This is a strike slip zone. Portion down here, the Gorda Ridges, this is a divergent boundary, meaning separation here of the, let's see where our separation of the seafloor. Slowly, obviously, over time. You can see the ridges, and that's creating new oceanic crust. So this zone up here is more of a transform boundary, a strike slip. And when this has earthquake activity, most of the time the activity will lead to further strain out here across the Cascadia area. We'll see, some periodic uptick here across Northern California, and that could be why we're seeing maybe a little bit of activity further down south, though. But it looks like that may be outside of the limit or outside of the area. And tremor activity has been pretty quiet. Cascadia tremor down dip, downstream underneath the area. Not a whole lot here in the last couple days. So we'll see what today brings once they put out that map a little bit later on this evening, if tremor along the Cascadia has increased or not. But we are lighting up out here a little bit. A lot of red circles there on the map. One earthquake out in the near the Newberry volcano. Little 0.1, nothing big, very shallow earthquake. Could be that's obviously a crustal quake. One earthquake outside of Mount St. Helens. Really nothing big going on there. Let's double check Yellowstone. Let's see what we have here across the area. And Yellowstone, let's see. Pretty quiet. These seismograph stations look pretty quiet here. There is one little earthquake there around Purple Mountain in the last couple hours, but that's going to be probably maybe a 0.5 or so. Not a 5 magnitude, but a 0.5. That earthquake did, well, trying to see, that may be actually a little bit bigger. Maybe a 1 magnitude. It did show up here across a couple different seismograph stations, including over here, Upper Falls area as well. But aside from that, it's pretty quiet. That's not even really worth mentioning. All right, let's take a look here at the rest of the globe here, see what we got going on for newer activity. Pretty quiet across the crunch zone today. I call that the crunch zone because this is pretty much where all the plates subduct, collide, and I'll show you here on the map. Notice the arrows here indicating the general direction of the plate. North American plate, Pacific plate, Australia plate, Eurasia plate. All these arrows here all pointing towards the crunch zone here. I call it roughly about... it could be considered Kuril-Kamchatka Trench all the way down into this area of the Indonesia Islands region. with a focus on Taiwan into the Philippines, that area, and Japan included in that as well. This is where all the arrows are pointing at dynamically. This is where it all crunches, so to speak. That's the best terminology that I can think of. And so they're always seeing earthquake activity out here in this section. Today, not so much. So it's very rare to see, minimal activity out here such as this. So things are hard to say what's going on right now. Things are building out here somewhere. Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, another 4-pointer, 4.5 up there across the area. That one, that's going to be Japan. Today's earthquake, pretty deep, 97 miles deep here into that subduction zone. This is an area that has not had a major large earthquake. I'm talking about above a 7 or so in quite a while. And it's a lengthy subduction zone, and it accumulates quite a bit of strain here. It's reinforced here by the Pacific Plate. Here's that subduction zone. The Kuril-Kamchatka Trench area. Reinforced by the Eurasia Plate pointing down to the southeast. North American Plate here coming down from the north. It shouldn't take hundreds of years for a big earthquake to strike here across this zone. So we got something coming up there soon, I feel. Let's see. Some newer activity around the New Guinea area. A couple 4s out there. Some further movement across New Zealand northward here, it looks like, along the Kermadec Trench. 4.9 stirring up there. Yesterday we had a 5.8 just off the North Island coast. Looks like some activity working its way up the plate boundary here in the last 12 hours or so. Hawaii, quite a few earthquakes there, but that's also because of the magnitude threshold here. I'm going to go back to about 2.0 and above for earthquake activity out here. I don't want to include a bunch of 1s on the map because then it just clusters the area. Let me check Hawaii real quick, see what's going on out here. Nothing major. A little bit of movement from yesterday here and this morning, it looks like. Very shallow earthquake activity up across the Upper East Rift Zone. So let's go check out Hawaii, see what's going on here. Here's a little bit. That's Mammoth Mountain here. That's the wrong one. Need to go to Kilauea Volcano. I was like, man, where'd all this land come from out in the Pacific? All right, here's the Kilauea Volcano. A little bit of earthquake swarming here across the Upper East Rift Zone. Camera view of the crater area today. Absolutely stunning blue, clear skies out there on the Big Island of Hawaii. Really no volcanic gases seeping through it. And that all depends on if the weather is moist and cold out here. Then you'll see the volcanic gases a little bit more visible. But it looks pretty calm out there for now. A look at the seismograph stations there around the earthquake swarm area. Well, there's the GPS. Over the years. 2023, we've seen... Okay, let's go over here real quick. This one's not working. That one's not working? Are these all offline or what? What's going on here? Looks like some of these may be offline. Majority of them offline. What is up here? Tilt meters offline. I'm on the... Yeah, it's a little odd. To me, it looks like they're offline. I'm not... Yeah. All right, so... Really no way of knowing or looking at the seismograph stations here. Is our tilt meter up and running? Our deformation data? Uh-oh. Okay, this yeah, this is offline as well. We should be looking at the past 2 days, past week, past month, but they're all offline. At least for me, anyway. So if they're working for you, let me know. It's not working for me, so we have no way of checking if there's any major inflation going on right there overnight. Always seems to happen around the holidays. Things go offline. Things get fishy. All right, so what we do have out here, we'll just continue to watch. There's a deep earthquake there across the area of Afghanistan. It looks like eastern Afghanistan. Super deep one here. 134 miles deep for that 5.1. A lot of activity here recently across the inland region. So we'll watch it today, see what happens. We'll check out space weather here real quick. I know they're dealing with some type of blackout as well. Supposedly, this is what they're putting up here. This was put up from yesterday from Kevin here at the solarham.com site. The SDO, which is the Solar Dynamics Observatory, which monitors the sun, the data is currently unavailable due to flooding in the JSOC room at Stanford University. How? Why? You think stuff like that would be fairly secure and preventable, right? So everything's gone down in terms of our most recent images here. In terms of this, the UV filter, that's from the 26th, so a couple days old there. All these images are old except for, well, even this one's old from yesterday. Yesterday as well. So who knows? Might have to break out my solar camera with my solar lens on it and see what's going on in the sun with myself, with my own two eyes, because nothing's really working out here in terms of the data. So supposedly 20% chance for X flare, M flare at 65, C flare around 99% chance. One thing possible tonight is that we're supposed to maybe see some auroras, and that is due to a filament eruption here a couple days ago that shot off some plasma in the Earth-directed view. But I was looking at the forecast model there, and it shows just barely a glancing hit with the bulk of the plasma away from Earth. So I'm not so certain this is going to stir up like this tonight. It would be cool to see G1, G2 class storm, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that. Right now, conditions super calm. Not a whole lot going on there for the Aurora department. For the weather today, well, I mean, the majority of the country out here pretty quiet for this Thanksgiving. A little bit of travel worries out there across the southeast. Marginal risk for some severe weather. Got a fairly lengthy 2% zone of some tornado activity. A little bit of wind and some small hail out there as well across that area of Georgia and Alabama. But aside from that, should be a pretty quiet day in terms of weather, at least. After that, maybe if you're heading home this weekend, Friday, a little bit of snow up around the Great Lakes. This weekend here, really no major weather impacts here. I mean, yes, a little bit cold temperatures, a little bit of snow around the Great Lakes, but really no super major travel issues. And as we head into next week, it's a dominant pattern out here. This high pressure ridge is creating the jet stream to bring the cold air way down from Canada across this area of the country. A lot of colder air dipping down into this region. In fact, if you look at the temperature differences out here from about Thanksgiving here onward, just a massive cool pool of air across this area. We're talking about maybe 20 degrees below average here for a good portion of the country there in the east. Warmer out here across the west. Not warm, but it's above average here. And then after that, another cool drop here across the east. More warmth over there across the Pacific Northwest. I don't like that one bit. Hoping that changes. And, it's towards the end of this model. Looks like maybe we'll get some cooler weather out here across California. Because it's December, right? And I want it to feel like winter. I don't want it in the 70s. I want it cold, rainy, windy. That's my type of weather. So hopefully we'll get a return to that here as we head towards the middle of December, I guess. One more earthquake, it looks like, down here across the Ocatello Wells region. Since I started this update, little 2.2, just off the Elsinore Fault here. So just be on guard, folks. You know, me saying that earthquakes here happen on various interesting dates. You know, Easter, could be New Year's, Christmas, Halloween. You know, like the Halloween superstorms here a few years back. Easter earthquake. Could be Thanksgiving earthquake. You never know. You know, things happen on interesting dates. So just be on guard. Stay safe. All is well for now. But who knows when that could change. Enjoy your Thanksgiving with your family, folks. Me and Missy Mimi's just going to keep it simple here at home. Just a little quiet dinner. And that's about it. Not traveling anywhere. Just going to keep it super simple. Again, happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later on this evening. I always like to do my nightly updates as well. So we'll see you guys back then. Have a good day.